My name is April Rose D. Gabuna, and I'm here today to talk to you about Presidential Proclamation number 480, Series of 1989, and Education for All and other key concepts.
Let me read to you the content of Proclamation number 480, Series of 1989. Before that, let me give you first the meaning of proclamation. Proclamation is an act that formally declares to the general public that the government has acted in a particular way. A written or printed document issued by a superior government executive, such as the president or governor, which sets out such a declaration by the government.
Proclamation number 480, Series of 1989, signed on October 16, 1989, Malacañang, Manila, by the President of the Philippines. Proclamation number 480, declaring the period 1990 to 1999 as the decade of education for all. Whereas the Constitution mandates that the state shall protect and promote the right of all citizens to quality education at all levels and shall take appropriate steps to make such education accessible to all. Whereas the state shall encourage non-formal, informal, and indigenous learning systems, as well as self-learning, independent, and out-of-school study programs, particularly those that respond to community needs. Whereas education, the empowerment of the population with basic levels of learning, skills, knowledge, and values is the fundamental right of all. Whereas education as the key human right without which other rights are vulnerable must be for all. Whereas education for all implies equal access to education and achievement of at least the learnings essential for functioning effectively in society and to continuing learning. Whereas the education for all targets are universalization of primary education, eradication of illiteracy, and continuing education for out-of-school youth and adults. Whereas there is a worldwide concern for education for all and a need to forge a grand alliance among all sectors for the purpose of developing and implementing a national plan of action for the next decade to ensure at least basic education for all Filipinos. Whereas the UN General Assembly has designated 1990 the International Literacy Year to usher in a new decade that is hoped to put a stronger emphasis on human resources. Whereas there is a need for the state to commit resources and redirect its policies and priorities towards the fulfillment of the objectives of this declaration.
Now, therefore, I, Corazon C. Aquino, President of the Republic of the Philippines, by virtue of the power vested in me by law, do hereby declare the period 1990-1999 as the decade of education for all, for the purpose of providing direction for the National Program of Education for All, formulating policies and coordinating the preparation of the National Plan of Action for 1990-1999, and for initiating legislative proposals and other executive decisions in support of the objective of this proclamation, there is hereby created a National Committee on Education for All to be composed of
Secretary of Education, Culture and Sports, Chairman. Secretary of Finance, Member. Director General, National Economic and Development Authority, Member. Secretary of Budget and Management, Member. Secretary of Social Welfare and Development, Member. Secretary of Health, Member. Secretary of Labor and Employment, Member. Secretary of Local Government, Member. Secretary of Agriculture, Member. Secretary of Science and Technology, Member. Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Member. Chairman, Committee on Education, Philippine Senate, Member. Vice Chairman, Committee on Education, Philippine Senate, Member. Chairman, Committee on Education, House of Representatives, Member. Vice Chairman, Committee on Education, House of Representatives, Member. Undersecretary of Education, Culture and Sports, in charge of non-formal education, Member. Undersecretary, Philippine Information Agency, Member. President, Association of Non-Traditional Education of the Philippines, Member. Executive Director, Philippine Business for Social Progress, Member. Secretary General, UNESCO National Commission, Member. President, Coordinating Council for Private Education Associations, Member. President and General Manager, Philippine Public School Teachers Association, Member. Student Regents, University of the Philippines, Member. Philippine Representative, United Nations Development Program, Member. Philippine Representative, United Nations Children's Fund, Member. Resident Representative, World Bank, Member. Chief, Social Infrastructure Division, Asian Development Bank, Member. The members of the committee shall designate qualified and competent staff as their permanent alternates who shall represent them whenever they are unable to attend committee meetings. The committee shall have a technical secretariat composed of members from government and non-government agencies who shall be designated by the chairman of the National Committee. The Technical Secretariat shall provide technical and administrative support for the Education for All program and serve as liaison for the National Committee. The committee, through the Technical Secretariat, may call upon any department, bureau, office, or instrumentality of the government for such assistance as it may need in the performance of its functions. It may also seek assistance from non-government agencies to achieve the goals of education for all. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the Republic of the Philippines to be affixed. Done in the city of Manila, this 16th day of October, in the year of our Lord, 1989. Signed, Corazon C. Aquino, President. Signed, Catalino Macaraig Jr., Executive Secretary.